In this video, we're going to review the distance tool under the measurements tool tab. But before we do, we're just going to move our crop box to cut through the point cloud to expose a view that we want to take our measurements from. So now that I've done that, what I'm going to do is left click the measurement dropdown, left click distance, and you'll notice now I can select points in the point cloud to start my measurement from. And what I'm going to do as an example is try and see what length of material I can get through this corridor so that I know what I can get in here into the work area. So I'm going to left click in the middle of this opening and then go to the back wall and left click again. You'll notice after you do that, automatically another point auto-populates. If you don't want to select another point, you only want the two, press escape. And what happens is, along that line, three measurements will populate: 3D, X, Y, and Z. The 3D measurement is the total length of this line or distance between D6 and D5 in 3D space. XY is the 2D dimension. You can think of that as what you would scale off a drawing when you typically look at a plan view. However, because this is a point cloud, we have to remember there is an elevation or a Z component here, as shown, that results in an overall length in 3D space that is different than 2D. In order to demonstrate that, I'm just going to left click and rotate about my model. And what you'll notice is that D6 is actually up on the wall, even though when we looked at our plan view, going back to that, it looked like it was in line with D5. So just to show you how that kind of works, I'm going to left click D6 because I can move it down to the bottom floor here. And if we go back to our measurements, you'll notice now that the 3D and XY, which is the 2D dimension, are much more similar to one another. And that is because the Z component is no longer over a meter, it is much closer to 1.4 meters or about 6 inches. Which measurement you want will depend on what you're taking off, so it's kind of suited for purpose. One last thing with this distance tool that I want to cover is the fact that you can take distances along constraints. Now we have a video discussing what constraints are in more detail, but very briefly here, I have some pre-populated in this point cloud, and I'm just going to highlight them by expanding that constraint box and showing them on the model. So you see here I have an axis constraint, which I'm going to populate, and a plane constraint, which I'm also going to populate. So now that those are visible, you can see them. And what these do is mean that you can take measurements or areas or what have you that are stuck on these planes or axes. So I'm just going to turn off that plane just to expose that axis, and I'm going to activate it. And now when you take your distance, you'll notice that I can't just place it anywhere on the point cloud because the axis constraint is active. It is stuck to it. Again, that's going to be covered in a separate video.